the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency for Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. Welcome, everyone. I have an announcement to begin the meeting, which is that board member Todd Brewer will be attending the April 9th, 2025 meeting via video conference due to an extraordinary circumstance as outlined in Section 4E of the organization's public meeting video conference policy. This determination was made by IDA Administrative Director Kelly Boda. Mr. Brewer will be attending at a location that is not open to the public and thus will not count towards quorum, but will be able to vote on any motions on the floor. And welcome, Todd.
Thank you, Rich.
Okay, first item of business is privilege of the floor. I do have some blue cards. If anybody else wishes to speak, please fill out a blue card over there. First up is, let's see, Teresa Alt.
I'm Teresa Alt, 206 Eddy Street, City of Ithaca. In the recent Ex Libris public hearing, I suggested that the project that had already received tax benefits should be required to meet the needs of lifelong and the city's need for workforce housing. However, I see neither of these in the resolution to give away more of our tax money for a building that has already been built but not fully rented due to over-high rents. I mentioned that this debacle was likely avoidable. The IDA has already undertaken to order a study of housing needs, a good idea if the study is well done. It will be good if the IDA stops encouraging the construction of kinds of housing that are already plentiful. A second approach to responsible stewardship of public money is to examine the track record of the applicant. In the case of Ex Libris, the earlier 2019 applicant was Frost Travis. It should not have taken a rocket scientist to discover that at that time, Frost Travis had owned the Ithaca gun site for a decade and had not managed to clean it up and develop it. In late 2021, he gave up and sold the gun factory site to Todd Fox of Vism. A little over 3 years later, an apartment building is going up on the former brownfield. I walked by it and saw it.
Thank you. Next up, Amanda Kirchkastner.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm here to talk about Library Place, and I know that nothing I'm going to say today is going to change the way that any of you have already decided you're going to vote. I will point out that there was tremendous public outcry from the get-go on the location, tremendous public interest in having something that was accessible and affordable to families. A questionable developer was chosen who was way over budget. I don't know how he got approved. It makes me question the competency of this agency. And here we are contemplating extending, or I guess adding time to an abatement to give it to, I believe, the developer that was the most favored when the community was first articulating their expressed interests. Legislator John was kind enough to point out to me that Cornell's losing $1 billion in funding. That will absolutely have ramifications in our community, and I will strongly encourage the IDA, maybe we learn from this lesson and actually focus on the core mission of Industrial Development Agency. We need jobs that pay people well so that they can actually afford housing. It's not build the housing, the jobs will come. It's if we create opportunities for people to gain meaningful entry into employment, the housing will happen. People can afford it. We need to rethink centralized core development because we're doing a very poor job of it. Give people resources. People with resources make great choices in caring for themselves, their families, and their communities. We need jobs that pay well. Industrial Development Agency. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Whiziker.
Good afternoon. I'm Peter Whiziker. I live on Tioga Street here in the city of Ithaca. I'd like to speak to 3 points today. First, please do not approve the additional tax breaks for Court Street, Ithaca, the new owners or owners to be of Library Place. As you know, I'm sure you were trained when you first signed up to be on the volunteer to be on the board. Tax abatements for most projects, including residential buildings, have traditionally been offered to enable the enterprise, to give the enterprise time to establish itself, right? We help them out at the beginning, they can give them a running start, and then they can go. That clearly isn't necessary in this case. If the project isn't already stable after nine more years, it's not going to be, 1 year isn't going to make that much of a difference. Probably you'd have a new developer or a new building owner by then. Moreover, the macroeconomic factors that have arisen over the past 3 months, which will be facing local and state governments, suggest that they will be in need of all the revenue they can make. And as we saw over the past year or so, taxpayers are clearly getting restless. So even the amount of the mortgage tax will matter. That could be someone's salary and benefits for the year. Please reject this request. Second, I would urge the board to take the report from Camoin Associates on all the good work done by the economic development agencies across the state this year with a grain of salt. The numbers are based on a fallacy that's often reported and repeated here. With few exceptions, projects supported by IDAs would not occur but for IDA assistance. That's a quote, page 11. This is a fallacy in some, if not many, cases. I'm not saying that IDAs, including this one, don't do a lot of good work. And we have somebody from Raza Spa here who is looking for assistance that will help create jobs, like Amanda says. Great. But there's simply too often IDAs are afraid, it seems, to stand up to those who come looking to take advantage of their resources and say, we know you can do it. We know you know that there's money here that will improve your bottom line, and that we're likely to say yes. And so basically what I'm saying is that the report, for all its showing the good things that have been done, I would say some of that was unnecessary. And finally, I
hope... If you could be brief, you've run out of your time, but finish your point if you can.
Okay, my last point is quick. I hope that in the future we'll be provided with the rationale, the developer or the applicant's rationale for wanting the benefit, because in the case of the Library Place extension, the year extension, all we got was the legal documents and nothing from them saying, okay, this is why we want it. Sorry to go.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Anybody else who wishes to address the IDA? Seeing none, next item is additions to the agenda. I do anticipate we will be having an executive session at the end of the meeting to discuss confidential contract negotiations on a matter. But that leads us to business. Are there any other additions to the agenda? Seeing none. First item is the Court Street Ithaca LLC Library Place incentives. And I believe we have some guests with us.
We do, yes. We have Andy Bodowis here from Park Grove Realty. Come on.
Hey, Rich, I'm going to step away from the table. I'm conflicted out.
Okay. And do we have somebody from Lifelong here as well? Would it be helpful to have them at the table as well, or are we Please. You're welcome to come up. And welcome to our guests. I think it would be helpful to the IDA to get some, you can take the 2 seats. Yeah. It would be helpful to get some statement, if you're able to speak in public on it, on status of whether you've been able to reach any agreement.
Well, I'll start real quick. Andy Bodowitz with Park Grove, and thanks for having us here today. We have reached an agreement, and pleased that Liza and Sheila are here. Liza, the executive director, and Sheila, the chair of the board. We've been working diligently, Park Grove and Lifelong, for the last, I don't know, week to 10 days on this issue since it became known to us, and them being aware of the transfer. It sort of was something that neither party was fully aware of, the other party being involved and that sort of thing. So in short order, we worked diligently, and thankfully we were able to come to an agreement, which actually both sides have just signed and executed. And we're pleased to say that we will be working with Lifelong for the long term. If everything else goes through and we can acquire the building, we will have a 20-year agreement, just as previously Frost had and his partners had. And I just want to say a thanks to Frost and his partners, who were also very helpful and trying to do whatever they could to work with both us and Lifelong to make this happen. So, and again, thank you to the folks at Lifelong. We really was an issue that everyone wanted to get past. So.
I'm very happy to hear that. Liza, maybe you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I'll just add, so I'm Liza Berger, I'm the executive director at Lifelong, and, I'll kind of echo what Andy said. It's been a lot of back and forth, but we really, I think, both worked very hard to find something that was workable for both of us, and we're excited about this partnership.
I'm excited as well, because this certainly was an issue of real community concern. I indicated after the public hearing that I would read the comments, and I did. 173 people took the time to weigh in on this issue. So there was certainly very strong community feeling here, and this is a public good that we have this, and I really appreciate you as a development company stepping up and going to the table. I know this was not an easy negotiation because it was a surprise to you, but thank you. Yeah. Any other, Deborah.
Yeah, I'm really relieved and happy to hear that y'all were able to reach an agreement. One thing that came through loud and clear in the public hearing was that people felt that the agreement that existed previously with the Travis Hyde people didn't seem to be legally enforceable and firmly in place. And I just want to be sure that you feel that this agreement that you've just executed protects you and you're comfortable with it.
Absolutely, and actually the original agreement is legally enforceable, and we got legal counsel on that. We would have had to agree to change anything.
All right, great. Just wanted to be sure that everything's covered. I want to thank both of your organizations for making this happen.
Thank you.
Okay, and my dim memory from 1 month ago was that we had agreed to approve the transfer of the IDA incentives to the new owner if the deal goes through. And what we're considering today is trying to realign the calendar dates to make the incentive the same as was originally there, because you're going through the rent up and you have a largely empty building at present. So
That's correct.
is there anything else you want to speak to on that issue?
Not really. I think I'll just reiterate it, that sort of we're starting from square one, and that additional year is critical. We're starting it really as though we're at the beginning. I know we're a little way there, but we have to pick up along. There's a lot to the finish line, and we have a long way to go, and in short order. So that additional year is very important.
Okay. Do we want to put a motion on the floor? Deborah moves.
I'll second.
Jerry seconds, and this is to extend the incentives by 1 year to reflect the original agreement as was made with Travis Hyde.
And also for the mortgage recording tax.
Yeah.
And the mortgage. Thank you. Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. Discussion? Comment? I'll just say I will support the motion. I think this is a necessary thing to make sure this project is financially viable. And again, I won't restate it, but I'm so pleased that you guys took the time and did the work and got to an agreement so that Lifelong is protected in this arrangement as well. Anybody else? Okay, we ready to vote? Todd has hand up. Oh, Todd, sorry. Todd, please.
Hi, Rich. Yep, I heard Peter mention something earlier in the meeting, and I too was like against it in the beginning, but after it was explained to us at the last meeting there, I'm perfectly comfortable with supporting it now. I mean, it's just, you want it to be a benefit to the community, so I think it's a good reason now.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, are we ready to vote? I'll call the roll. Todd?
Yes.
Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that's unanimous. Well, again, thank you. Thank you for all the work on this.
Thank you all. We appreciate it. And we look forward to hopefully a great building and a long relationship with Lifelong. Thanks.
All right, next item of business is Living Essence Massage application. And we have a guest on Zoom. Rachel Hogenkamp is with us. Welcome.
We do, and we also have Amitai Warab here in person, acting as a consultant with Rachel and team.
Okay, welcome. Rachel, do you want to open up the discussion? Do you want to tell us what you plan to do?
Yeah, sure, Rich. Thanks so much. And I just wanted to say thank you for considering us today. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. Like many people right now, I picked up a virus and I did not want to pass it along. So I'm sitting at home and Amitai's there in person so we can have a person there as well. So many of you might know me as the person who owns Rasa Spa, and a number of years ago, what we realized was that most of the massage schools in the central region between Buffalo and Albany were closing. It was a perfect storm of many factors. It happened largely through COVID, and what we were watching in our own business was that it was getting very, very hard to hire talent. So we're having a very hard time finding massage therapies, the bread and butter for Rasa Spa and any other business like ours. It's also just a wonderful service that we have in our communities that really help people on many, many levels. And having taught at the Finger Lakes School of Massage, I turned my attention to say, well, what if we wanted to do a school of our own? Like, what would that look like? And so we've spent the last few years working on it. We developed a curriculum that we actually shared with and sold to the school in Seneca Falls that many of you might know, that was the chiropractic college. That's the College for Natural Sciences. And they opened a program that's a part-time program. And what we were still finding is that there's a real need for a full-time program in the central region of the state. And so we took it on. And long story short, we're now here. We're getting ready to launch. We wanted to wait until we got to the point where the state was reviewing our application, which interestingly enough is literally this week. We went through two big hurdles where they had to review the curriculum, which was approved. Then they had to come to the site, which they saw. And that went very well. And now it's at the state level and they're doing their final check for us. So we're hoping we will hear in the next week that the school's moving forward. And then that means that we're moving forward with all the necessary purchases that we need to do, which get us to this moment for our sales tax exemption. So that's a little bit of it. And I'll let Amitai kind of jump into and share what you want to share.
Sure. Thanks, Rachel. And again, thanks for having us on the agenda. As Rachel mentioned, in 2019, there were 5 full-time massage therapy programs within 100 miles of Ithaca. Within 12 months, there were none. Currently, there's no full-time program between Buffalo and Albany and nowhere north of the Hudson Valley. So it's really fulfilling an unmet need here, as Rachel mentioned. If massage therapy is the #1 service that Rasa provides, not having massage therapists to fulfill that need is a problem. And it's not, there are often days where there are empty rooms at Rasa Spa, not because there's not people that don't want massage therapy, it's because there aren't massage therapists to fulfill that need. I own a small 2-person massage therapy clinic, and we're over 90% booked out through the end of the year, and it's because we just don't have enough massage therapists. There's no pipeline feeding in massage therapists to this region. So this school will fulfill that need. It will create at least 4 full-time equivalent positions just in the school itself, and it'll create dozens of jobs annually, again, fulfilling that need, not just expanding the capabilities of the businesses in Tompkins County that currently exist, but right now there's a complete chill on being able to even have a new business start because there's no providers to provide this service. So this school will create, again, full-time jobs in Tompkins County that don't exist, and will create dozens of part-time positions, if not full-time, annually with graduates from this program. So that's a little bit about how the creation of this school will fulfill an unmet need and create jobs in the area. And also, the Finger Lakes School of Massage existed here for several decades, and it was part of the fabric of this community. And if you go up to the hospital, there's not an insignificant chance that the nurse that's taking care of you was first a massage therapist and then went to nursing school. Or at Family and Children's, there's folks that are psychotherapists and counselors that started as a massage therapist that went on to pursue a higher degree. I started as a massage therapist, went to chiropractic school. There's folks in town that are acupuncturists, yoga instructors, physical therapists that started as massage therapists and then went on to pursue an additional degree. So a lot of the providers in this county started as massage therapists, and it really is part of the character and makeup of Tompkins County.
Okay. And Kelly, maybe you could just run through the requested benefit, the sales tax exemption?
So what you have in your packet is a sales tax request incentive for the project of $397,500, and that sales tax benefit request would be for $31,800. As Amitai and Rachel stated, this will create 4 jobs over 3 years, and a ripple effect with 20 to 25 new employees for the area. Let's see. The location is on Trumansburg Road in the town of Ulysses, and the space is just over 3,700 square feet. And most of the renovations and project will be of a cosmetic nature that they'll be able to do with their team. So open for any questions.
Questions? I have one, but I'd defer. Okay.
Do we get free massages?
At this amount, I don't believe we're required to hold a public hearing.
Correct.
But we could. And I'd like to sound out the board. Do you believe this is a situation where we want to send this out to public hearing before considering approval?
Todd's got his hand up.
Oh, Todd.
Yeah, but I don't think there's no need to myself. I'll be supporting this project. I think it's great. It's only like the $31,800. I think it's a no-brainer to me. You're creating 4 jobs, and I expect it to really grow too. But good for you.
Duxon.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is an easy thing to support. It seems very exciting. I'm a client of multiple FLSM graduates, and it has been a really huge loss. I do want to ask though, is there like an understanding of why the 5 upstate schools failed and what you think you can do differently to succeed?
Yeah, I'll jump in for a second, and then Amitai, you're welcome to add in. That's a great question. It's actually a question that we asked ourselves long before we decided to go forward with this. The truth is that it was a perfect storm. Finger Lakes School of Massage closed in 2019 due to a number of factors, but some of it had to do with off-site ownership. Folks weren't local, and I believe that did create some disconnect between what was actually going on in the organization and what was needed. 2 of those other programs were full-time programs that were actually started by somebody who I went to massage school with at the Finger Lakes School in '94. And he was getting ready to either retire or sell. And then COVID hit. And My understanding from having talked to folks who worked there was that he just chose to close and not wait and see what was going to happen. The other two were very part-time programs at community colleges, and I think, again, it was one of those situations that people were pulling back. I'd have to go back at the dates, but I want to say all of that happened between 2019 and like March of 21. So it was really in that first year of people making pretty dramatic decisions. What I can say is that I've spoken with a number of regional businesses that hire massage therapists, and we have a few of them coming on board to support the school because they really, really need therapists. And it's, you know, it's causing an issue with some of these businesses that rely on the spa services to be a part of what they also offer for the larger resort areas. But it's also, as Amitai said, just such a critical piece, I think, for folks who go into healthcare. It's a nice either come back to school for massage therapy or jump off point to go into something else if you choose not to stay in it. It's not generally a career that people hang on to for 30 years. Some folks do, but it's a typical, 7, 8, 9 years, I think, is sort of the average of what people do in this, and then branch out into something else. But they're learning a lot through this program that then just feed into the other pieces. The other thing maybe to share with you all that I believe is in our application if you read through, but we're looking to have 24 students as a full-time cohort. So we're not interested in having it balloon into 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 students. We really like the idea of keeping it boutique, and we believe that that's a number, that's a target number that we feel like we can reach.
Can you also say something about the tuition versus, expected, I'm going to use the word return, but basically I mean like, their earnings in the years to come, and is it, how viable, it is obviously viable because we have a bunch of great massage therapists in town, but if you can just speak to the public about that, the tuition to earnings transition.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for asking for that. I have a couple thoughts on it. I mean, one is that if somebody's choosing to work for another organization, right, they're looking at a different way of being compensated. For the businesses that are supporting us, the return that we've said to them, because they're for what they're giving into the business, which some of them are giving as much as $50,000 to get us off the ground. Those folks are seeing a return in less than 6 months. What I believe for the therapists, if they're having to cover their whole outlay of the tuition, plus it's likely that they're going to need to deal with living expenses. This program also is designed specifically to give folks evenings and most weekends. Many full-time programs, when you're in it, you don't have that option. So we set this up a little bit differently. So at the end, there's a 3-week intensive practicum time where they do a lot of their hands-on to the public. We'll be working with organizations in town. Somebody said, do we get free massages?
That was me.
Just so you know. What we're going to be working with is finding organizations in town. We've already talked to some folks, but once we get the approval, we'll reach out to others to be in their spaces and offering massage for those last 3 weeks with the folks that are about to graduate. So the hope is also it might give people a springboard into finding a job or a place to land. And I think for the folks who do private practice, I also think the return is reasonable. I mean, it's hard to say because everybody's practice is so different, but I do think that the return is there. And I think within a few years, they would certainly be able to cover their living expenses and pay back their whatever loan or additional funding that they needed to do. And Amitai, I don't know if you want to share more, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah, just briefly that for this program, which is a 7.5-month program, to the certification that you receive in a short period of time allows people, again, there is a wide range because if you're working, let's say, for Rasa Spa versus over the course of years plus or decade plus to build, a private practice, there is a wide range, but the return on investment is immediate. Like, I don't want to say you're 100% guaranteed a job coming out with a massage therapy license here, but it's pretty darn close to that. And someone working full time could expect, to be earning somewhere in the mid 40s for, I don't know what other certification, non-degree certification programs allow you to go right into the marketplace and earn that immediately. And again, there's a much higher ceiling, but that as a floor for full-time work. And for massage therapists, full-time work is, if you're doing 20+ massages a week, that's full-time, but that's not 40 hours a week necessarily. So it's a really terrific return on investment, and as we alluded to earlier, a great opportunity to enter into healthcare. If this is where folks land for 20, 30 years, great, but it also, in many areas, is a touchstone to move on to higher degrees.
Thank you. Okay. One other item I wanted to make sure we put on the record, Kelly, an issue that the IDA has to consider is potential retail competition by an incentive being offered. And we have a letter on that. I was hoping you could just talk to that.
We do, yes. So because this is a service industry and not a traditional like manufacturer or something that we would offer incentives to, we do have to obtain approval from the chair of the legislature. So we connected with Dan Klein about this request, and he did support the incentive. So.
Yeah, and to be clear, there has been made clear here, there is no competing school.
Correct.
In anywhere near here. So this is a really good thing to add to our community. Okay. Any further comment? Okay. Are we ready to vote? Todd?
Did we put it
Yes.
on the table?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we need a motion. Sorry. Jeff,
The
thank you.
motion.
Jeff moves.
Second.
We need a second. Deborah seconds. Right, and this is to approve the application? Yes.
Yes, approve
Okay.
the sales.
Are we ready to vote?
I'm sorry, to approve the application and not go to a.
And not go to public hearing?
Public hearing, right?
Yeah. So, Todd?
Yes.
Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that's unanimous. Well, great. Congratulations and very good luck with your school.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. We'll let you all know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item of business is the TCIDA labor policy amendments approval. And the memo can be found on page 30 of the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
And today we have Kurt Anderson here from IAED to discuss the memo about the policy, potential policy revisions. And we also have Kevin Loki from Loki Brill with us and Rick Clements from Loki Brill as well.
Okay, welcome everybody.
I'll kick it off. Kurt
Yes,
Anderson, Director of Operations with Ithaca Area Economic Development. I have been tasked internally with cultivating, stewarding, amending the local labor utilization policy. So annually we meet to review that policy. The Labor Committee met recently to go through data. The next steps are to conduct interviews with various stakeholder groups, and later this year, the committee may or may not recommend to you modifications to the labor policy. Prior to that, however, and separate from that, are some functional amendments to that same policy that allow us to actually utilize the services of Loki Brill for our labor monitoring. In November, you all approved use of a third-party consultant, which I think is kind of a natural progression of where we've come with this policy. It was simply just collecting data, then it was evaluating data. But the actual monitoring and compliance, we're doing the best we can with the staffing resources that we have, but it became evident that utilization of a third party would actually be most helpful to us. So you all approved use of Loki Brill, and I'll turn it over to Kevin in a second to talk, but the issue is that the documents they use to great effect across multiple IDA catchment basins differed from our policy, okay? So I couldn't in good conscience, or we couldn't in good conscience, send to a developer or a general contractor our policy that has certain clauses and conditions, and then say, by the way, these folks are coming to actually do the monitoring, and they have different conditions that you'd fall under. So the changes that you see in your packet and in front of you today are simply to amend our policy to make it more functional and compliant in accordance with Loki Brill's policies that, again, they use to great effect throughout the state. The first one of those being the catchment area. Technically, our policy defines the catchment area as Tompkins +6. The way that we wrote, or actually that John Guttridge wrote, the coding behind the data collection, it actually spills out a little bit outside of our region. Loki Brill, through their regular site visits, actually check identifications and then cross-reference cities to counties. So it just tightens up the basin a little bit to Tompkins +6 cleanly instead of a little bit of spillover. So that's change number one. The second change that you'll see is actually the reporting deadline, and I gave you an example in there where the report for January would be due in April, 60 days after the month that expires. Loki Brill actually requires weekly labor reports. And this is something that I won't speak for Todd, but he's expressed support for this in the past, that, look, these contractors want to get paid. They're doing timesheets. They're sending in their reports. Why shouldn't we have them at the same time? And I think this one, to me, really, I guess the term that I would use is it ups our game, right? We're keeping closer tabs on what's happening in real time, because often when a project ends, I actually don't know that for several months afterward, right? So there's very little opportunity for us to correct or amend or discuss any adjustments that are necessary. So the number two, the reporting timeline, is kind of the one that I'm really keen on. And then the last one is probably one that you would appreciate. It adjusts the waiver request timeline. When we adopted the revised policy a couple years ago, it set a 15-day limit for administrative review and waivers, and a 30-day for any board waivers. The board, to my knowledge, has never received a waiver request or reviewed one. Loki Brill uses a 45-day waiver request timeline. So at A, it really kind of forces the general contractor to think ahead and communicate clearly. And B, it allows Loki Brill and us to more thoroughly vet those requests so that if there are any additional questions, that those can be addressed, and actually allows for a regular meeting of the IDA between those requests, from the date of request to the date that we have to approve it, or that you would approve it. It gives us more time to get together if there are questions. So largely those are the three changes that you see. Again, they're very functional to this policy. Again, the committee will meet and we might talk about other substantive changes of the policy, but that's not what we're talking about. This is just to align ours with theirs so we can start utilizing their services on labor compliance.
Okay. And Todd.
Yes, I ask her one thing. I didn't notice it until I was looking at it today. After the second sentence and after number 3 under the waivers, it has there that that we will not collect insurance certificates, and this is something that this company does anyways normally. I think it's a good thing to have that, because the problems we usually see all the time is when you get people doing 1099s on their employees, you know, and we all know that's just a scam just to skirt certain things, you know, because these people don't have EIN numbers, they don't have workers' comp, they don't have disability. It's just a thing just to get cheaper labor in town there. But I think if we had something there where they could request, I think it's a good thing to have them request insurance policies. Any contractor that's you know, playing fair and treating their workers right is going to have that information anyways. You know, it's only going to affect the ones that are the bad actors that are doing the 1099s.
Yeah, so Todd's referring to the last paragraph of the memo below number 3, which references the insurance policies that Loki Brill, as part of their contract, would and could collect. This was a point of discussion for the Labor Committee meeting recently that I mentioned. We discussed it. It wasn't recommended or rejected. It is certainly out there, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't get any cost savings for them not doing it. So, yeah. You know, we had discussed at the committee level, well, why not just have them do it just in case we need it? But again, the committee has not made any decision on that to my knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So will that be forthcoming?
I guess we can have discussion on it.
Yeah.
Before we get there, why don't we welcome our guests, Kevin and Rick, and I'd ask, do you have anything you want to add to what Kurt said?
So good afternoon. Thanks for having us both on this call. I'm the IDA Services Manager for Loki Brill Consulting Group. We work for IDAs all over the state of New York, from Erie County all the way down to Westchester County. And of course, everywhere you go in the state, the policies are a little different, and they're fitting to the construction industry and rules in those particular jurisdictions. So it varies everywhere we go around the state. And obviously we've been talking to Kurt for several months to figure out what policy is the best for Tompkins County. So,
Uh-oh. You froze.
Yeah,
what we're going to be able to do is to provide the labor is coming from. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you froze for a bit, but you're back.
Okay. Gotcha. So, but we'll be able to provide you on a monthly basis the overall compliance percentage for all of these projects that we'll be auditing to ensure that they ultimately meet 75% local labor over that 7-county area by the time the project is complete. And, you know, by collecting those weekly labor reports, you know, we can tell you every week the percentage complete of a project and where their compliance level is. Collecting insurance is something we do for every other IDA that we work for. And as mentioned, it is no added expense. And to Todd's point, it does ensure that you are avoiding any 1099 violators. And also in the instance, if there might be an accident or injury on a project site, to know that everyone's covered gives the IDA peace of mind. Sometimes if they don't have coverages, someone might come after the IDA as they're listed as the beneficiary of the project. So there's a couple reasons in collecting that, and we're more than happy to do that for you. Again, the exact same rate we've already discussed. That's really easy for us, and any competent contractor, as Todd mentioned, is already collecting this stuff anyways. It's just a matter of us verifying it. We keep a spreadsheet with all of the policies for every contractor. We communicate regularly with the GC when documents will be expiring soon to get updated documents. We will be performing once a month site inspections that will validate the information on these labor reports to ensure the project is reporting their numbers accurately. And again, we're able to provide any real-time updates about the project, any concerns we might have. We can tell you how far along a project is. If there are safety concerns, for example, we would bring to your attention, as we always want to make sure that there are no accidents or potential for accidents on any of these job sites as well. Of course, we have OSHA 30 certification and training to do that and look for those issues. But that's pretty much the long and short of it. Ultimately, we want to ensure that all these projects meet their local labor goals at the end of the day. But also, oftentimes in our industry, we're helping to educate, you know, the worker, the boots on the ground, so to speak, to let them know what an IDA is and the benefit they serve to the local community, both in the short term with construction jobs and in the long term with full-time employment.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board members? Okay.
So, Mitch.
Todd, please.
I think this is a great idea. I love the idea that someone's going to be keep an eye on them. Like Kurt did an amazing job for I don't know how he did as long as he did with all the other stuff he does with his day-to-day roles, but and I thank Kurt for everything he's done all those years. I think this would be fantastic, and the fact that you guys can scale it down a lot more than than the average people can, that's impressive. That's a great thing.
Okay, thanks, Todd. And Kevin and I have spoken also that we, the IDA, would be willing or able to join him on site visits just to increase our knowledge of how they operate. And the monthly reports that he referenced, I think, will just give you a bigger picture. As if you didn't have enough to read in your packet, it might just give you more information and a tighter picture on the status of construction in our community.
Okay. And we can also have them collect the insurance certificates. I guess I'd like to hear from the IDA members what you think of, do we want to have that? Jerry?
I was going to reinforce what Todd said regarding that. I think it's a terrific idea. It's often something that does sort of gets overlooked in the process of preparing paperwork for projects, having done a few of these myself. And I'm fairly certain it's an OSHA requirement as well for certificates to be provided. So I'm very much in favor of adding that to the package.
Yeah, just to be clear, my understanding of New York state law is IDAs do not have any responsibility to ensure that there is insurance of one kind or another, but I agree completely. This is a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to know. So, Okay, anything further? Could I get a motion to put to accept the proposed amendments to the local labor utilization policy?
I'll move.
Jerry moves, Jeff seconds. Further discussion? All right, let's put it to a vote. Todd?
Yes.
Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that is unanimous. Okay. Next up, NYSDEC, New York State Environmental Development.
Nope. New York State Economic Development Council.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Policy or economic impact of New York State IDA's discussion. Kelly, do you want to lead that off?
Yes. So as we previously discussed in other meetings, the New York State Economic Development Council did a study of the impacts of IDAs across the state. So in your packet, the first page is just a one-page snapshot of some high-level data that was gathered from across the state. I think that the snapshot at the bottom is really great, where it highlights the new housing, affordable housing, renewable energy, and projects being built in the downtown core. So that's something that we can, or you can use when talking to people in the public about what it is the IDA does and the impacts that they have provided. The next 28 pages drills down.
Skip those, right?
I will say there were different projects that were highlighted across the state. The data is from 2022, and Tompkins County was highlighted for the Asteri project. So there is a write-up in here about the Asteri project and what it brought to the community. There are lots of spreadsheets and data tables in here about renewable projects across the different regions. So it's interesting to see not only with the renewable projects, but the housing numbers and affordable units and how they break down across the state. So this, I think, is just a really nice snapshot of what IDAs do across the state. So I wanted to make sure to share this with everyone.
This is encouraging reading. I would note I went to a totally unrelated meeting last week on emergency medical services in the county and received some information on what's happening across upstate New York. And if you look at trending, every county around us, and in fact every county around us, is seeing population decline, except for Tompkins County. But this is a serious issue for upstate New York in that this is not new, that we're seeing a slow spiral down. Fortunately, Tompkins County is seeing an increase. I think, I'm trying to remember the percentage, so I won't quote it because I can't remember it, but we've seen positive growth. And frankly, I think the work of the IDA plays a part in that. But I would guess that the numbers across upstate New York would be far worse, but for the work of all of these IDAs. I also wanted to comment on our guest that spoke on privilege of the floor, saying there's always an open question and suggested it's a myth that IDAs make any difference at all, that we incentivize projects, but they would all get built anyway, or the vast majority of them. And certainly having served on the IDA for many years and looked at the processes we use to evaluate proposals, I just disagree with that. That fundamentally, we are looking for projects where IDA incentives make that difference for a project to go forward, to get greenlit. And the recent experience of the pandemic and the outcome of the pandemic and seeing fluctuations in interest rates and available labor and construction material costs and what that did to project after project, you can see how close a project is to being viable and not viable, in my mind. And I anticipate going forward that the work of the IDA will continue to be really important to this community. So it's good to see it in black and white here. I'd welcome comment from anybody else. Jeff?
Yeah, I think I'll just reiterate what Rich just said, because since I've been on the IDA, every project that we've turned down has not been built. So, and even projects that we have incentivized because of what Rich has just cited, there's a number of them, we get the list on a quarterly basis. There's a number of them that still can't cross that threshold of being viable, even with the incentives. So I think it's really important, the work that we do. And I think my hope is that the community recognizes that and understands that.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you for bringing this to us.
Absolutely.
And we'll keep moving. Next is the Community Housing Development Fund Program Oversight Committee and an update. And I believe we have a guest with us today.
We do. We have two guests
Two
today.
guests. All right. One of them.
We have Shauna Stevenson from the Department of Planning and Sustainability, and we also have Annie Corman, the chair of the Program Oversight Committee of the Community Housing Development Fund. And they are going to discuss with us today the request to utilize the IDA Workforce Housing Policy funds for targeted affordability up to 100% area median income.
And I would just do a further introduction to say, when the suggestion of you coming forward was made, I said, that's a great idea, because we know about the money going into the Community Housing Development Fund. And generally, I think we have a sense of that it's doing good things, but getting it directly and getting some real information from you guys is
great. So we're all set.
Good thing. Yeah.
Your work here is through.
So welcome.
Great. I think I know most of, I think I know everybody here. So I'll just start out a little bit. So you have my letter in the packet there. And first of all, we want to thank the IDA for helping with this program to populate money into the Community Housing Development Fund. And I don't know all the stats of it, so Shauna will help with a little bit of that. When we sent you the letter, we had received up to that point, I think it was 1.2 million in contributions through this, but it's more than that?
Yeah.
Is it more than that now?
Yeah, we just received a large check from a recent development, so we're up to $3 million contributed by the IDA Workforce Housing Policy Fund.
You stole my thunder from my staff report.
You could say it again.
You can repeat it, right?
Please say it again.
Right, good news. It deserves to be said twice. So, and as people might know about this program, so this is a partnership. The Community Housing Development Fund is a partnership with some municipalities, with the town of Ithaca, town of Dryden contribute a little bit, but it's mostly with the Cornell and partnership with the city of Ithaca and the county. So this helps with smaller grants that help leverage larger grants and larger funding for projects. So this is really helpful. So we had been with this monies, we had been following what the county's money was able to do, which was programs up to 80% AMI for projects, for housing projects. But we're seeing that there's monies available for projects up to 100% AMI. And as we know, that's kind of like the missing middle. We know that's an area that we want to target also. So with our county funded money, we're not going to change that right now. But with this money coming in, we had treated it like the county money, but we'd like to treat it a little bit differently. There's nothing in writing that you guys said when you sent the money that we had to do it a certain way, but it was kind of, understood, and we said we were going to do that. So we don't need you to vote on this, but we would like some agreement that it's okay if we treat your money a little bit different and offer it for other funding sources. So Shauna, I'll let you chime in if I missed anything or you want to add to that.
Oh, sure. Hope you can hear me okay. So right now, Tompkins County's contribution to the Community Housing Development Fund is limited to units that target affordability at 80% AMI, and not just target, it needs to be at 80% AMI or less for household income. And so we had been treating the IDA contributions at similarly. The reason why we treat it at 80% AMI for the county is because they're HUD entitlement funds, so it's contractually set at that rate, but the IDA is not necessarily limited by that. We do recognize that the funding's coming in because of that the developments are receiving a tax credit and that, or a tax rebate rather, because they're not creating the units at 80% AMI, so we're kind of transferring that to our fund policy. But there have been some state programs recently that allow funding for affordable units up to 100% AMI, as Annie was saying. So, for example, the Affordable Home Ownership Opportunity Program provides funding for home ownership opportunities up to 100% AMI or up to 80% AMI at different subsidy rates. And then there's also the small building participation loan program, which provides a low interest gap project financing assistance for development for rehabilitation of rental buildings, and those are up to $150,000 per unit, and the units are restricted at 120% AMI. So we could see a big possibility where the IDA, workforce housing policy funds, could kind of fill in a gap where the state's already funding these slightly higher AMI projects. And so a higher contribution would allow for us to better leverage those programs locally, because we know that there's local developments which uses these funds. So that's kind of why we're coming to you. And as Annie said, this does help leverage more funding from other sources for local projects as well. So to show more local support through this would help their projects thrive in other applications.
And I'll just add with, I use the acronym AMI, and I'm always big on people explaining, and I'm sure probably everybody here knows, but just for people watching, it's average median income.
Okay. Deborah.
Yeah, I'm in complete support of this. I wish you'd gone to 120, frankly. Just fresh from this morning's housing conference put on by Cornell. So the latest figure for our AMI is $122,000 a year, which seems to me pretty high, considering that what we also learned this morning is that approximately half of the people who live in Tompkins County don't make a living wage. Now, the living wage currently is about $25 an hour, so that's $52,000 a year, which is well below that 122. So there's definitely a crying need for more support for that missing middle in housing, and unfortunately, there are not a lot of public funding streams for that missing middle, so anything we can do to alleviate that shortfall is a good thing.
Duxon.
On that note about reaching up to 120%, so something that Nels Bone, the director at IERA, Ithaca Urban Renewal Agency, noted is that, excuse me, AHOP, whose acronym I already forget, Affordable Housing something or other, allows households with incomes 20% higher than the target AMI range to buy homes under the program. So at least for owner-occupied affordable housing, if you set the target at 100%, someone who makes up to 120% is eligible to buy it. Same with, like, you target at 80, then someone at 100 is eligible. So,
could you say that again? I did not.
Sorry. So this housing program from the state for purchasing homes has gives 20% leeway in terms of the target AMI. So if a house is targeted to 100% AMI household, a household that makes up to 120% is eligible to purchase that house. And so bumping our allowance up to 100 does, in fact, at least under this particular classification of housing, will allow that flexibility for 120% AMI households.
Right.
Okay. Just for the benefit of the public, the IDA is seeking to get a housing study because we want to have a robust discussion about the kinds of projects we're supporting, and that desire has really arisen because we've been very successful, I would say, in finding support for market rate housing and a fair amount of affordable housing. But it is this workforce housing in the middle that we have really not addressed at all. And I think a consensus on the IDA is that we need to try to help that segment if we can. Not that we don't have other housing needs, but that we really haven't addressed this at all. So moving to 100% seems to be a very sensible step from my standpoint. Jeff or Jerry, do you have anything you want to?
I'm fully in favor of this. It's, you know, I just want to echo what everybody else has said. You know how important the you know, finding ways to do this is. So I really appreciate you guys coming and bringing this to our attention and bringing this forward.
Yeah, totally support it. Hopefully you can find good projects that you can utilize it with.
Okay, Todd?
I agree too. I think it's a smart move. And I'll tell you one thing I'd like to see too is, you know, how we got affordable housing carved out of the local labor policy. If we had it in there, if it wasn't carved out, you know, at least the people building these projects they're gonna be getting paid more money. You know, just, I don't know, it's just a way for them to better themselves to not need the affordable housing or not need the help in getting housing. Just another way I think at it, the way I look at it. But no, I definitely support this.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you have pretty clear direction from this.
Have you seen projects come through that would qualify at this 100%?
So I haven't seen, I'll say round 25 just opened, so nothing's coming in yet. We just updated the notice of funding availability, and it's live now until the end of May 30th. So we haven't seen anything coming in yet, but maybe Annie can give more context if you've seen things limited by that.
Yeah, we hadn't opened it up to that, so we hadn't really been tracking those. But there is funding available for those projects. It's a little bit different than the projects we've been awarding grants to. So because there is money towards that, we were kind of, and we have great people on our team, on that committee, that look at, here's the funding pots, here's what's available, because we have to, you know, go by, you know, what the state is able to offer, because if the state doesn't offer these certain incentives, then we shouldn't offer them either. So we're trying to track what's being available now. And so that's why we decided to open it up. And also part of the reason was because before the state had only been giving us awarding the area one affordable housing project a year. This year was different. Even though they told us only one is the maximum in your region.
For the low-income housing tax credit.
Yeah, the low-income housing tax credit. And so this year we got 2. But generally, if we just get one of those and we can get another one in the other funding pot, then we might be able to get 2, maybe we could get 3, but we could get, because we're behind the 8 ball, we're not able to keep up with affordable housing. So we thought opening up might get more projects. And if I could say, some of us went to the housing summit that Cornell sponsored today. And so some of the talk was about moving forward. So I hope when you're looking at the housing study that you talk with Sean, our housing planner, and Megan McDonald at planning on, you know, what they're doing and what, you know, how you could augment what they're doing. Because we got a lot of good ideas at that summit on how to try and make things better for housing. And so would you say, I guess the last thing I'd say is, if you want to say that, you know, there's a consensus, you know, there's no objection, but there's a consensus of the group. I think we heard from everybody, but I just want to make sure that we have your agreement.
Absolutely. You know, Greg Mezzi is not here today. You know, I'd recommend sounding him out separately, but it sounded like it was unanimous otherwise. Duxon.
So I can't find the policy right now, but is the 80% number in the housing policy? And do we need to actually move a change or write a resolution or something?
I don't believe we need to take any, I don't think there's any percentage at all. It's just, we're requiring a payment into the Community Housing Development Fund. And that's why I thought it was good to have this meeting today, because we just transfer the funds in and hope that good is done. And it does seem like that's happening. But it's great to hear it directly. Yeah, Ann.
Right, if I could say, thanks to Kelly and Ina who called me last week or so when they got this, and they did check, like, oh, do we need to change something in our policy? And we all agreed that there wasn't anything that needed to be changed, but we just wanted to be totally transparent, with you folks.
Okay. Anything further on this issue? Good. Well, thanks for visiting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice to see you.
Thanks. All right, we have completed our business section. We're up to Chair's report. And I just wanted to touch briefly on this legal memo. Thank you to Stephen and Russ for helping us with this. This is on a court case that took place in Albany County. And the reason it's in front of us is that we will be looking at a very large-scale solar development proposal coming before us in the towns of Lansing and Groton. And New York State had passed legislation to say on these projects, here is the formula that will be used to calculate the pilot payment. And it was a function of a percentage or a price per kilowatt of the power generated by the solar array. And this Albany Supreme Court, which is the trial level in New York State, said, no, that's unconstitutional. The legislature can't delegate that authority. And there's an arbitrary and capricious element in that the legislature, Russ or Steve, if you want to comment, but it's really surprising to me that they didn't explain should tax credits be included or excluded, which seems like a pretty big miss.
I think they missed it.
Yeah.
We think they missed it. And just as an update, literally on my way down at pardon me, I should have had it up. I got a revised memo at 1:15 today.
Oh, okay.
So the one that you have in front of you will be updated, and I'll get it out to the board when I get back to the office, tomorrow.
Certainly, but I think for our purposes, the upshot is that the obligation to negotiate the price per kilowatt has been moved back to the locality again.
Right.
So it's up to us on this very large project to negotiate, and it's a different kind of negotiation because there's a requirement that the host communities get a share. So not only is there the tax payment to the towns, but because they're the host communities, they get a payment as well, which means we need to reach some sort of agreement, not only on our own, whether we approve the project or not, but what percentage we're taking for the host community agreement and what goes to tax payments. And also, well, again, we'll go from there, but it becomes a more complicated process for us. And part of it is this decision, which, again, it's at the trial level. It'll go to the appellate division in New York, and probably because somebody's going to be unhappy to the Court of Appeals, which is New York's highest court. So we won't have a full answer on this for 2 years. Fair?
That's probably a conservative.
Yeah, but we will soldier on in the meantime. Happy to give you some time to ask questions of our counsel if anybody has any.
Well, this is to follow up on what Rich, said, and I apologize for getting the memo to you on, was it Monday? But it's been such a fluid issue, and like I said, on the way down here, we got some additional information, so we'll keep the board up to date. We'll revise the memo as we get information and, respond accordingly.
Okay. Oh, Todd.
Hey, Russ. I just want to ask Rich, a question. Hey, Russ, I know I've mentioned it a few times already about the requiring, is there any chance with the IDA we could attach some language in there that, because I know I've talked with CS Energy and I talked to some other people. So the problem seems to be the owner not paying the GC or the developer in time and holding back for whatever reasons. So everybody else is in they got like a 14-day thing to pay each other, but but it doesn't happen if the developer's not being paid. So he's kind of, their hands are like free and clear that they don't have to pay anybody until they get money. Is there a way we could tag bonding requirements for we could require bond, and a job this size would be huge. I can imagine the payroll on a monthly basis, weekly or monthly basis. Is there a way you could, we could put something on there where the owner and the developer have to post bonds to make sure that way the contractors that are employing local people don't get burned. You know, this could destroy companies if, it could destroy a lot of companies if they didn't get paid regularly, because that's a huge payroll to keep going for the duration of that job, which they would do. They would suck up more and more debt to finish the job to keep from liquidated damages. If we had a tool like that, we had there to make sure that the developers, especially when the banks, some of these developers are banks, and when they're involved with it, they're very slow on paying their debts. Is there any tools like that we could use, Russ?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're asking. I think it's unrelated to the valuation memo, but so you're suggesting that the IDA require contractually that a developer and contractor bond, payroll essentially?
Or like the owner and the developer, because the owner's separate from the developer usually. Just to make sure that they're, the owner's paying the developer like they should and the developer's paying their subs like they should.
Yeah, that's certainly something we could, put within the four corners of the various contracts. The question I would have, and I'm not an insurance, expert, is that something that's insurable or bondable? I don't know the answer to that, and what the cost might associated with that might be for the developer and contractor. But it's something we can certainly look into.
Okay, thank you. Okay, because I know this is it puts a lot of teeth into any policy, because last thing anybody wants is their bonding touched, to secure jobs. So when contractors are securing more jobs, because the liabilities that are spread out there, no one wants that touched. So it kind of enforces, okay, hey, pay your debts quick.
Right, and remember, we can put whatever the board wants in the contracts. The question is, are they enforceable and collectible if there's a money issue? So it's really up to the board what they want to require.
Yeah.
Thank you.
From my standpoint, I'm happy to get the information on what we could possibly do, but I'm hesitant to get involved in trying to assist one side or the other with collection or payment. It seems we're not equipped to do that, that we don't really have the enforcement power or the bandwidth to chase that, but I'm happy to hear more.
I think that administratively, you're right, that could be burdensome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at, we had a developer that did that project below IC, Todd Fox's company. I know he still owes people money there, local contractors. I know he owed a lot of money to Pleasant Valley and Welliver. And so here, and then you see him doing another project, and getting more IDA subsidies for the breeze up there. So you just see people have this reputation of not paying. If we have something in there, some teeth in there to make sure that they're paying their subs. And it's crazy to think that someone gets an IDA subsidy, a tax pilot program, and then they don't honor it. They got paid, they're getting the benefits of it, but they haven't taken care of their subs yet. And the subs have really extended their line of credit and everything to pay their bills and pay their people. It's just not right. We're talking people that are employing a local workforce, just our neighbors.
Yeah, no, Todd, I agree with you all day long. We want our trades to get paid for the work done. Yeah.
Yeah, and vendors. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything further on this this memo? Okay. Well, we're going to hear more apparently. Let's move on to staff report. Kelly?
Okay, so an RFP was sent out for the housing demand study, and responses are due back for that on April 21st. So I'll let you know once we get those back. They were sent to about 6 different entities. The big news is that we received the administrative fee of $96,000 and the Community Housing Development Fund fee of $1.86 million. Yes, for the State Street Apartment Project, BVSHF 2. So.
Yeah. That project's going on just down the street from where I live, and so I've been peeking over the railing, watching them start on the pilings. It's really exciting. And that payment into the Community Housing Development Fund is just a gigantic thing. So, yeah.
It's great.
That's worth saying twice.
Yeah, it was a fun one to get closed. Just leave it
I
at
asked
that.
Ina if she wanted an escort over to to bring the check over. So that's all I have for staff report right now.
Okay, questions? Anything? All right. We have minutes from March 12th, 2025. Could I get a motion to put the minutes on the floor? Jerry moves. Jeff seconds. Discussion? Questions? Ready to vote? Todd?
Yes.
Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. As I indicated during additions to the agenda, we have an item we should probably discuss in executive session. Before we go in, I wanted to indicate the purpose of the executive session would be to discuss some confidential contract negotiation questions, and also to alert anybody here that there is no meeting of the Development Corporation following this meeting, and I do not anticipate we will come out of executive session and take any action today. Can I get a motion to go into executive session? Deborah moves, Duxon seconds. Discussion? Take the vote. Todd?
Yes.
Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, we'll take a few minutes to shut down the system, but we'll need to keep Todd online.